Hello Eternum and welcome to KOTT News, Eternum's #1 source for news, and this is the War Report. Dynamic change in the history of Eternum last night as the forces of Alab PH seize the crown and become kings of Monarch's Bluff. We caught up with the winners celebrating in Town Hall after their victory, and taking a moment to join us, company leaders were quick to spell things out. Congratulations on your victory out there tonight. The second time you guys came out here for land, the second time you succeed. How does it feel?
It feels good, man. It was a tough battle. They had really good strats, especially that Tom Hutch guy. He's a really good player. Big shout out to Strick for putting this up, and the money that we used to war was from him, so big shout out to him.
Excellent. That sounds fair. Sounds fair. Now that you have the hamlet under your control, what are your first intentions?
Most likely raise tax, make money before we lose it, payouts to the members, and make some money.
So you're telling me this is a basic pump and dump for Monarch, huh?
Basically, yeah. No upkeep. Please don't attack us within a week. We'd like to make money first, and then you can take it back, but yes.
KOTT News crews then returned to the Dead Man's Cove to work on some dusty weapon skills, and we had a little fun while doing it. Turning to the weather, and it's going to be a perfectly sunny day again well into evening, when a northern Arctic blast will drive invasions down into the body of the island. 2 more submissions for simulated fantasy combat resolution tonight, brought to you by LARPco. Remember, if it isn't LARPco, it's cardboard. First up, the Marauders of Great Cleave Police Department SWAT raid the Covenant forces of Lost Templar for control of the bear-infested deep forests of Brightwood. The GCPD have been keeping the peace in Great Cleave, but all that pent-up energy needs to go somewhere. The Forces Templar and their pipeline construction company now have a more direct route available to them, but will they just concede the land? Then, the Marauders of the Great Khan assail the syndicate forces of Perplexuals for control of the master fishing port town of Reekwater. The forces of the Great Khan begin their trek to unify the island through conquest, and they're starting by ensuring their bellies are full. The forces of Perplexuals have had little time to prepare since acquiring the hamlet 4 days ago, but they feel they can make up for that out on the field. Be sure to tune in for complete coverage and reactions from the citizens at 11. Until then, this has been War Correspondent JChalant, KOTT News. Hello Eternum and welcome to KOTT News, Eternum's #1 source for news, and this is the War Report. No change in the dynamic of Eternum last night as both great houses hold the line and retain their regional control. Some lines closer than others as we met up with Perplexual's leadership after their nail-biter in Reekwater.
Yeah, we had a great war. Spent a good chunk of it on the points, and I think it was around the 20-minute mark somewhere where they got into the fort. They definitely gave us a run for our money. At one point, it was, I want to say, like 96% ticked, the final point. But we got the spawn up in time, we got back on, we ticked it all the way down, held it down. And so, yeah, just thankful for everyone who came to help out. But a few Lost Templar people, as well as our Purple Alliance with HBM, it's good.
Fair to say then the Great Khan is successfully collecting their people and going to make an impact on the island, so other companies look out there, huh?
100%, yeah, they're a solid squad.
Well, hey, while I got you here, is there anything going on here in Reekwater that you have planned?
Yeah, honestly, with Reek, it's a 60-plus zone, and so we know there's a lot of end gamers here, and so we're just trying to keep the place looking good, making sure that we're upgrading stuff, keeping buffs up. So if you're looking for a house, Reekwater's got a great one. We also have a great mayor who runs through the town every once in a while.
In addition to the planned upgrades for the hamlet, all citizens should be aware of the hamlet's on-site, zero-emission gypsum forge. Additionally, the allied members of the syndicate may partake in the free lunch buffet offered daily. Tonight's special event calls for a detailed look at the weather, and the forecast calls for a 10% chance of evasion to the west in Monarch's Bluff. So it should be a beautiful night for the main event. Only one fight submitted for Simulated Fantasy Combat Resolution tonight, brought to you by LARPco. Remember, if it isn't LARPco, it's cardboard. Tonight, the former heavyweight champs of Hooded X Outcasts challenge the reigning heavyweight champs of Lost Templar for their championship title belt and the right to rule over Everfall. The recently defeated forces of Hooded X Outcasts immediately demand their right to rematch and return to the main ring, confident that last time was a fluke. For the new heavyweight champions of Lost Templar, they must feel comfortable, but also cautious. They know that starting their own Neverfall streak is going to be hard. We'll have the outcomes and reactions from the citizens tonight at 11. Until then, this has been War Correspondent JChalant, KOTT News. Hello, Eternum, and welcome to KOTT News, Eternum's #1 source for news. And this is the War Report. Dynamic change in the history of Eternum last night as the rematch rumble in Everfall ends with the returning heavyweight champions seizing the belt. We caught up with Hooded X Outcast leadership after the bout and got their reactions. Great job out there today. Congratulations, the former heavyweight champs, now the current heavyweight champs of Everfall. How does it feel?
Oh man, it feels great. They beat us the first time, and we were knocked down a bit. We came back, we rebuilt, and we came back stronger than ever, and glad to see that our hard work paid off.
Went down in the final round. How long did it take you to get in the gates?
Oh, gates were kind of a breeze. We steamrolled them a bit, got them on the back foot. They recovered in the fort. We had a grueling fort fight, but in the end, they made some crucial mistakes, and we were able to capitalize. I really want to highlight Kai's work. That man had put in the work. He made the roster, he did everything, and he made some crucial calls and came out on top.
KOTT news crews then returned to beating up on poor, unsuspecting corruption while dusting off weapons during the Double XP event. Crafting to come soon. Turning to the weather, and it's going to be a beautiful morning all day long again until the magnetic polar pulses will cause a 20% chance of invasion on the tips. 4 rosters submitted for Simulated Fantasy Combat Resolution tonight, brought to you by LARPco. Remember, if it isn't LARPco, it's cardboard. First up, the Covenant forces of Spice Lords assail the Marauders of the Resurgent for control of First Light and the flow of the spice. The forces of Spice Lords held the Cape when the spice was discovered, and now they've returned to put a stop to the excessive harvesting. The Resurgent have worked hard to repair and maintain the hamlet since the Spice Blob attack earlier this month, but is it too little, too late? Meanwhile, the Marauders of Weebang Anime Chicks assault the Syndicate forces of Here Be Mutineers for control of the uncontrollable Restless Shore. The all-female company of anime binge watchers have just powered through Full Dive, the ultimate next-gen full dive RPG is poop, and now they're coming for Restless Shore. For the Syndicate forces of Here Be Mutineers, the anarchy in the archipelago is always a constant, but this might be their first fight regarding subs versus dubs. In the third simultaneous fight, the Marauders of Nameless Corgi attack the Syndicate forces of Here Be Mutineers for control of the bamboo forest preserves and medicinal hot springs of the resort destination of Ebonscale. As you can tell by the length of the Ebonscale title card, it has become more and more desirable to own as time goes on. Here Be Mutineers have had little practice defending a fort before tonight. In fact, tonight's doubleheader will be their second and third hold, or will they? In the nightcap, the Marauders of Anvil assault the Syndicate forces of Perplexuals for the northernmost region of Morningdale. Anvil forces march north into the cold and rain in their efforts to secure a piece of land on the island to call home. But Perplexual forces already call this home and have continued to improve the ongoing canal project for the people. Be sure to tune in for complete coverage and reactions from the citizens at 11. Until then, this has been War Correspondent JChalant, KOTT News. Hello, Eternum, and welcome to KOTT News, Eternum's #1 source for news. And this is the War Report. No change in the dynamic of Eternum last night, as a night of peace between the factions came to be. However, briefly. Recent interviews from the preceding night's outcome were lost to the corruption during editing. Speaking of corruption, another beautiful morning lasting throughout the day well into afternoon until a northern cold front will move across the island, dredging up invasions along the northern rim. One submission for Simulated Fantasy Combat Resolution tonight brought to you by LARPco. Remember, if it isn't LARPco, it's cardboard. Tonight, the Syndicate forces of Primordius Virtue assault the Covenant forces of Ancient Templar for the bear-infested deep forests of Brightwood. Once again, the founding great house of Primordius marches into the woods in their effort to retake that which they originally purchased. For the forces of Ancient Templar, their proposed potential pipeline placement project continues to face opposition, a loss tonight, and they may have to start from scratch. Be sure to tune in for complete coverage and reactions from the citizens at 11. Until then, this has been War Correspondent JChalant, KOTT News. Hello, Eternum, and welcome to KOTT News, Eternum's #1 source for news. And this is the War Report. No change in the dynamic of Eternum last night as the forces of Lost Templar managed to hold the final flag for 5 minutes and retain control of Brightwood. We caught up with Ancient Templar immediately after the fight and got their reactions. Oh my gosh. All right, so C goes down pretty early, B at about 8 minutes left, A at about 5 minutes left, and then from then it's all hands on flag, right?
Yeah, it was just a fort fight. They had one nice last little push, but we wiped everyone as they were coming through B gate. So it was fun. It was a good war.
Excellent. Is there anybody out there who really stood out for you tonight?
We're just grateful for our allies that came to help us out. You know, I don't know if you've noticed the map lately. There's two yellow territories. I think we actually want to go on offense a little bit more. We've got a war tomorrow night, and then we'll probably have a practice war coming up here in CK. But our war in Everfall tomorrow will be a good one. We're looking forward to that.
A quick look at the weather, which will be perfectly sunny all day long again until southern rainstorms will hit the coastline and dredge up a 30% chance of invasions. 2 lineup submissions for Simulated Fantasy Combat Resolution tonight brought to you by LARPco. Remember, if it isn't LARPco, it's cardboard. Up first, the Covenant forces of Lost Templar challenge the Marauders of Hooded X Outcasts for their championship title and the right to rule over Everfall. These 2 great houses have been exchanging blows the last few weeks, and once again, it's Templar's turn to challenge. For Hooded X Outcasts, their conscience is now clear. Beginning this Neverfall attempt from scratch, they journey anew tonight. In the nightcap, the Syndicate forces of masked reporters mug the Marauders of Hooded X Outcasts in their attempt to steal the financial capital of Windsward. KOTT News would like to ensure its viewers that these masked reporters are in no way affiliated with KOTT, even if they all have on the same outfit and look awesome. Having spoken to many of the Hooded X Outcast members from time to time, I can assure you it is highly unlikely that they will be interviewed to death. We'll have the outcomes and reactions from the citizens tonight at 11. Until then, this has been War Correspondent JChalant, KOTT News. Hello, Eternum, and welcome to KOTT News, Eternum's #1 source for news. And this is the War Report. No change in the dynamic of Eternum last night as the forces of Hooded X Outcasts went out and retained control of the central corridor of the island. KOTT news crews were preoccupied elsewhere, but returned today in order to ensure everyone knows about the ongoing harvesting boost. And a beautiful day to go fishing it is, with sunshine all day long again. But low-pressure cold fronts will move in from the north, bringing a 10% chance of invasion with it late. 2 roster submissions for Simulated Fantasy Combat Resolution tonight brought to you by LARPco. Remember, if it isn't LARPco, it's cardboard. First up, the Marauders of Bob Ross Backup Dancers unionize against the Syndicate forces of Here Be Mutineers in the resort destination town of Ebonscale. The Bob Ross backup dancers have been featured in several Bob Ross performances lately. A win tonight, and they'll be under new contract with favorable terms. To them, say the mutineers who be here, as they defend their positions of managing directors of the Ebonscale Resort Cooperative. They have other members of staff to concern themselves with. In the nightcap, the marauders of the Great Khan assault the syndicate forces of Perplexuals for the freshwater resources of Morningdale. The Great Khan forces were barely turned away in Reekwater last week when these same two companies met before. Will they get over the hump tonight? The forces of Perplexuals know what they're up against tonight. Having immediately recognized the strength of their competitor before, tonight's matchup could go either way. Be sure to tune in for complete coverage and reactions from the citizens tonight at 11. Until then, this has been War Correspondent JChalant, KOTT News. Hello, Eternum, and welcome to KOTT News, Eternum's #1 source for news. And this is the War Report. Dynamic change in the history of Eternum last night as the Bob Ross backup dancers win in their vote to unionize the Ebonscale Backup Dancers Guild. And the forces of the Great Khan capture the freshwater reserves of the northernmost region of Morningdale. We caught up with an agent for the dancers after their victory in Ebonscale.
Yeah, it was a little jiggling and shaking, trying to get things set up in the right positions to get that big wipe you want to take it out and take the space. So took a few minutes longer than I personally would have hoped. I think our shot caller was perfectly happy with the way things went, though. So shout out to Hundo Extendo. He did a great job shot calling for us, telling us that this is where everyone should die, and then they do. It's amazing.
After a quick refresh in the hot springs, KOTT News crews traveled to Morningdale just in time and were able to get immediate reactions from the winners.
I feel it went really great. It was a great war. Like you said, they wiped, it was a little tough getting in the door there, but once we got in, we kept getting in, we kept hammering them, and we took it.
Indeed. Is there anybody whose efforts out there you might like to highlight?
Oh, of course. Our glorious leader, Hong Jong Longsong, the man, the legend, the myth.
Turning to the weather, and it's looking more and more like a sunny day will never not be until a modest El Nino coming in from the south will blow into the island, dredging up a 30% chance of invasions. 3 rosters submitted for Simulated Fantasy Combat Resolution tonight, brought to you by LARPco. Remember, if it isn't LARPco, it's cardboard. Starting things off, the Covenant forces of Lost Templar assault the Syndicate forces of Searing Void for control of the secondary oil reserves of Cutlass Keys. Lost Templar have been unsuccessful in securing land rights for their pipeline project, so now they've come to secure the source. Searing Void had previously negotiated to help maintain the pipeline, but unconfirmed reports now indicate the permits were not officially issued. Then, the marauders of Barangay Alab assail the Syndicate forces of Perplexuals for control of the master fishing port town of Reekwater. The Barangay forces of Alab have identified the best spots for angling and boating, and they're trolling into the swamp to claim them. Perplexual forces are recovering from last night's loss in Morningdale, but with their attention now focused on Reekwater alone, they're sure to fight at their best. In the late night nightcap, the Syndicate forces of Perplexuals attack the marauders of Alab PH for Crown and Kingdom of the Western Monarch's Bluff. Turns out the Perplexual forces are hungrier than first reported, participating in a doubleheader tonight with the Alab forces. For the Alab forces, tonight's outcomes could leave them elated or deflated. Will they go for the win or play to defend? We'll have the outcomes and reactions from the citizens tonight at 11. Until then, this has been War Correspondent JChalant, KOTT News.